I can't believe we made it. Week 1 of the fantasy football season, and that means it's time for must start and sits of the week. Week 1 here, looking at the running back position. I'm going to give you 9 running backs today, 6 that you should start with the most confidence, and 3 that you might be planning on starting that I think you should potentially sit. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. I'm excited, honestly. Literally the best matchup that you could possibly have week 1. My favorite matchup at the running back spot, J.K. Dobbins at home versus the Houston Texans. Last year, no team gave up more points per game to the running back position than the Houston Texans. If there's any Dobbins owner out there and you're concerned about the holdout that he kind of had, the injury that he was dealing with, no, it's time to start him with confidence in week 1. If I could single-handedly pick one team for my fantasy running back to face in week 1, that would be the Houston Texans. Now, of course, we understand this is a different team to what it was last year, okay? They're good. They added Will Anderson, but this is still a young team, and this new look Ravens offense should be humming to start the year. I personally anticipate the Baltimore Ravens being up big in this game, which could allow them to feed a guy like J.K. Dobbins on the ground to close the game out. I am personally predicting 15 plus points from J.K. Dobbins in week 1 in a PPR league. Reminder, once Dobbins had his cleanup knee procedure last year in 2022, he was a monster from that point onwards when he came back. In rushing yards, he only played 4 out of 5 games when he came back. He led the NFL in that time span from week 14 onwards with almost 400 rushing yards in just 4 games played. His yards per attempt, he was the best from the time he came back from that knee surgery in the entire NFL. Yards after contact per attempt, he was 9th. And his breakaway percentage, meaning runs that went for more than 15 yards, 44.3%. That was 3rd best in the National Football League. So start him with extreme confidence this week. And if you are someone who likes player props, I am personally choosing the higher option on his rushing yards. 58.5 rushing yards is a current player prop over on Underdog. I'm choosing higher. If you like player props and you want to play some pick'ems with us, go ahead and use our promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, when signing up to Underdog. There's a pinned comment where you can check out a direct link. If you use our code, you get your deposit matched up to $100. So if you submit $100, you get a free $100. Go ahead and tweet me if you do so. Tell me what props you're doing this week as well. Okay, the second start, I'm going to give you a couple options here, actually. How about any Commanders running back versus the Arizona Cardinals? They will be playing at home. I like Brian Robinson in this matchup. I like Antonio Gibson in this matchup. Now, I will say I wanted to get deep with this list. I didn't want to say just all obvious names. If you are someone who has Jonathan Taylor or someone that you plan on starting is injured, Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson are great spot starts, guys that you can start if you're in a pinch. The Cardinals last year gave up the 3rd most points to fantasy running backs. I think they'll be even worse this year. They did not get better. They released Colt McCoy. They traded away some decent players for pennies. Kyler Murray's not going to play. Is it Josh Dobbs? Is it Clayton Tune? Either way, this offense is probably going to struggle. And the Commanders, if they can just be competent, should have the ball on offense for a very high percentage of snaps. If that's the case, Gibson and Brian Robinson should have plenty of opportunities to get anywhere from 10 to 15 PPR points in fantasy here in week 1. Again, like not a very good team. Traded away one of their best defensive backs or in free agency. He left in Byron Murphy. I specifically really love Antonio's rushing and receiving prop on Underdog this week. He should get plenty of opportunities to reach that 47.5 mark. I mean, Gibson with his explosiveness versus a bad defense in Arizona, he could get 47 yards in one play, one pass, one reception out of the backfield. I really am excited to see how Eric Bieniemy is going to use him. Yeah, go ahead and smash that higher if you're playing Underdog with me. All right, the third start at the running back position. Had a great finish last year. We're going to roll with him again. Cam Akers at Seattle. Last year, the Seahawks gave up the 4th most points to fantasy running backs on a per game basis. Now, I understand last year's not this year, but it gives you the context. It's a similar team. They have gotten better. Jamal Adams will be finally back and healthy. They drafted a cornerback in the 1st round, Devin Witherspoon, who should be a very, very good player for them, but it might take time. And however, this is ultimately a volume play with Cam Akers. It does not look like Cooper Kupp is going to play in this game. Ian Rappaport coming out saying that he's seeing a specialist. They're probably going to, take their time with him. And without Cooper Kupp in the lineup, this offense will be centric around Cam Akers. And if you look at last year without Cooper Kupp, Cam Akers was very good for fantasy football when he was not on the field because he was the entire offense. On a per game basis, you can see in split, out of split. Out of split meaning without Cooper Kupp. In split meaning with Cooper Kupp. Without Cooper Kupp, averaging over 14 PPR points per game, almost doubling his rushing attempts and almost tripling his rushing yards per game. So I'm rolling with the guy who finished the year really strong last year, Cam Akers, if you have him in your lineup. All right, the fourth start, and I really love this one. Again, another spot start, trying to dig deep for you guys. If you missed out on a running back, or you went 0 RB, or you have Jonathan Taylor on your team, how about Raheem Mostert at the Los Angeles Chargers? Last year, the Chargers gave up the 7th most points per game to the running back position. Jeff Wilson is on IR. Myles Gaskin was cut. Devon Achane, the rookie who looks great, is dealing with a shoulder injury. Salvon Ahmed, who looked pretty good in preseason, he's dealing with his own injury. The only competition in this backfield for Raheem is undrafted free agent rookie Chris Brooks, who, by the way, should be rostered in all dynasty formats, but Raheem Mostert will be the guy in week 1. He might be the guy for a while over there in Miami, so you might want to look at trading for him if it's cheap. Both the Chargers and the Dolphins were top 12 in offensive points per game last year. The starting running back in a game that should be a potential shootout is something that you should feel very good about. And if you don't have clear, better options, go ahead, put him in your flex. Maybe he's your RB2. I'm confident that he'll get you at least 10 PPR points per game here in week 1. My 5th start of the week, we're rolling through it. I'm so excited for week 1. I hope you are too. By the way, if you want weekly rankings that you can rely upon, as well as a DM to ask me advice, we call it the Fantasy Hotline, then go ahead and use our promo code LAND at the Flock Fantasy website. That will get you 30% off your membership. If you choose the Mother Flocker tier, you're going to get articles from everyone who's on our team over there. Very helpful articles, a way to get ahead of your league, weekly rankings, and you will also unlock the Fantasy Hotline, which is a direct DM to ask us advice all year long. Make sure you choose the Mother Flocker tier. Check out the pinned comment. My 5th start of the week, the rookie, 8th overall pick in the NFL draft, Bijan Robinson versus the Carolina Panthers. Last year, the Panthers were actually really good. Well, they were middle of the pack, let's just say that. Versus running backs in fantasy, they gave up the 14th fewest points per game. And I feel like there are two sides of the fantasy community when it comes to a guy like Bijan. I've noticed this over the offseason. People who will say, Bijan's a rookie, you shouldn't trust a rookie. And people like me who say they spent a top 8 pick on him. You know, Saquon Barkley had an incredible rookie year. Ezekiel Elliott had an incredible rookie season. They spent such high draft capital. He's a generational prospect. Don't overthink it. And that's what I'm here to say. Don't overthink it. Start Bijan Robinson. If you drafted him early, you had confidence in him. Keep that same confidence as we head into week 1. It's a divisional game. Bijan should get plenty of opportunities. This is an offense that had the most rushing attempts per game outside of the Eagles last year. Trust the talent. I am projecting over 15 PPR points for Bijan in his first ever game. Honestly, this dude is so talented. He only needs 10 touches to return that, in my opinion. Okay, and the 6th start, and we'll get to some players that you should sit, is David Montgomery at the Kansas City Chiefs. This is Thursday Night Football, so I tried to put it a little bit later into the video so you guys could, this video would still be relevant past Thursday. And last year, the Chiefs gave up the 13th most points to running backs. While I anticipate the Chiefs winning this game, I'm a Chiefs fan, I also believe that the Detroit offense is going to be effective. Keep in mind, Chris Jones has been holding out for a long time. A lot of people would argue either him or Aaron Donald as the best defensive tackle in the NFL. He's not been with the team that will have an impact even if he does come back and he's ready to play. Last year, the Lions were top 5 in offensive points per game, and they just got a huge upgrade to the running back room. They took Jamal Williams. They said, let me upgrade you. David Montgomery. They took DeAndre Swift. Let me upgrade you. Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, it's my strong belief, and I've had this belief throughout the entire offseason, that David Montgomery will be the goal line running back like Jamal Williams was last year. Jahmyr Gibbs, pass catching specialist, dynamic player, but he's only 199 pounds. David Montgomery, 223 pounds, a history of scoring touchdowns. again, we want to attach ourselves to potential shootouts. That's what we could have here in week 1, and David Montgomery could fall into the end zone twice for your team. Okay, now we'll get into the part of the video where I'm not going to be popular. I'm going to make some calls on players that I would sit if I had better options. And keep in mind, I don't hate any of these players. I just don't like their matchup. So firstly, if you are excited about drafting Jamal Williams because Alvin Kamara's out and Kendre Miller is dealing with a hamstring issue, I think there's better options. He is playing the Tennessee Titans in week 1. Last year, the Titans gave up the 4th fewest points to the running back position. If you're desperate, I understand why you might need to start him, okay? If you really feel like you need to, I get it. However, this has been one of the best defenses against the rush since Mike Vrabel took over as a head coach here. If I had Brian Robinson, Cam Akers, Raheem Mostert, I would personally lean that way. And you have to keep in mind, it's not like Jamal Williams was uber efficient on the ground last year. He was efficient as a goal line back, but he didn't have like a ridiculous yards per attempt or anything. So unless he gets into the end zone on the goal line, I'm not sure he gives you a very good game. The second player that I would personally sit, and a lot of people are high on these next 2 guys. I'm just telling you, if you have better options, I might steer clear. I'm sorry, Dameon Pierce at the Baltimore Ravens. In 2022, the Ravens gave up the 11th fewest points to the position. However, they traded for Roquan Smith before week 9. If you look at this team from week 9 onwards, they gave up the 7th fewest points per game to the running back position. This has a lot to do with how I envision this game going. I earlier talked about how good J.K. Dobbins is as a play. For the same reasons, I feel like the opposite for Dameon Pierce. I think the Ravens are going to be up early. I think they're going to dominate this game. And that means that the Texans and CJ Stroud are going to be forced to pass the ball a lot. I don't think they're going to be able to establish the run. And the only way Dameon Pierce is a good start is if they end up with a goal line touchdown, right? Or if he ends up being involved in the passing game. Now, all indications from preseason tell us that he will be more involved in the passing game. However, preseason doesn't matter until we see week 1. You know, that's where we'll actually find out. And if I had better options, I might look that way. Devin Singletary is a good pass catching back. He is on this team, and there is a chance that he's the 3rd down running back instead of Dameon being out there for all snaps. So we'll have to wait and see. But again, like there are definitely 24 running backs I would start ahead of Dameon Pierce this week. You guys can check out my rankings over on the Flock Fantasy website. And the last hit, again, I made a sell high video on this guy, and you know, people weren't happy with it. You're not popular when you tell people to sell or sit players that they love. Here I am telling you, maybe it's best to sit DeAndre Swift at New England. Last year, the Patriots gave up the 5th fewest points to the position. It's a tough call. I completely understand that DeAndre Swift, honestly, it could only take a couple touches with how dynamic he is. He could actually pay off for you. Okay. However, you might have an idea of how you anticipate this backfield playing out this year. I don't know. I truly do not know. Is it Swift? Is it Penny? Is it Gainwell? Will Boston Scott play a role? Here's what we know for sure. Last year, no team threw the ball to running backs less than the Eagles. And over 50% of DeAndre Swift's fantasy points in his career have come through the air. We also know that DeAndre Swift, in his entire career, less than 5% of his games, he's been able to give a team more than 15 rushing attempts. That's what the Eagles are looking for, in my opinion. So look, reports aren't clear. You hear one report that says Swift's the guy, another report saying Gainwell's the guy, or that Penny's going to be heavily involved. I don't know. I would just prefer to look elsewhere, especially if you have a better flex option. At the end of the day, I could be wrong, but I want to steer clear of the backfield until I find out what is actually going on. So we made it to week 1, people. We made it. Do me a favor, go ahead and drop a like if you enjoyed the video. Maybe you disagreed with some of the takes. Comment down below and let me know what you think. But man, I'm so excited for week 1. And go ahead and let me know a bold prediction in the chat. I want to know. I want to know if you made it all the way to the end of the video, what's a bold prediction that you have for week 1? Anyway, we'll see you in the next video. Subscribe. And thanks for watching. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.